Hello there, lovely good evening and welcome to Camnet TV main news today, the 6th of February in the year 2025. Let's take a look at the headlines. EFZ demands immediate release of Pastor SIMUCHIMBA, describes his conviction as unjust. Donor funding unreliable for health sector, says MEDRAP. Court slaps MWAMBA with bench warrant again. In international news, DRC military court issues arrest warrant for CORNEILLE NANGAA. In sports, FAS countersued accused of breaching 15 million kwacha contract. Join me for these and many more stories after this break. To present Camnet TV main news, I'm Tapelo Joe Smarter. The Young Women's Christian Association YWCA has urged the government to invest in preventive measures aimed at further reducing cases of gender-based violence, GBV. Speaking to Camnet, YWCA President Patricia Mubanga expressed satisfaction with the recent decline in GBV cases, attributing the progress to the efforts of the organization and the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, NGOCC. She, however, emphasized that while the reduction is encouraging, continued investment in prevention remains crucial. Mrs. Mbanga further highlighted the importance of strengthening family structures as a key preventive strategy, stating that fostering peace, unity, and morals within households can significantly contribute to GBV prevention. Yesterday, the Zambia Police Service revealed that it recorded a total number of 42,178 GBV cases in 2024, of which 136 were murder cases involving 91 women, 17 men, 16 men, 17 boys, and 12 girls. Details on this story in the following report.
Gender-based violence, a cancer that has left many with lifelong wounds and caused the death of loved ones, has been one of the country's greatest social challenges for years. Although GBV cases have been on the rise, there has been a 2% reduction in reported cases in 2024. Statistics show that 42,178 cases were recorded in 2024, compared to 42,965 in 2023. Young Women's Christian Association WCA President Patricia Mubanga has expressed happiness over this decline, saying it proves that NGOs' efforts are making a difference. She has stressed the need to invest in preventive measures to further reduce GBV and has called for stronger family values to promote peace, unity, and morality.
Glad as YWCA that the efforts that we have put in place together with the umbrella body, which is NGOCC, working with other member organizations on the issue of gender-based violence, that we have quite a number of cases that are being reported. And through that kind of reporting, we have noted that at least this year, at least last year compared to 2023, there's a slight decrease in terms of the cases. And this tells us that the awareness that we are creating as different organizations and civil society is really working. we need to further ensure that we work on preventive mechanisms so that we further reduce the gender-based violence cases.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Muvanga has also called for more awareness and openness in tackling GBV, urging men to report cases as speaking up is a sign of strength.
It's also build a lot of capacity together with the men-led organizations, build capacity in the police officers that are handling these issues around gender-based violence so that they are open enough to be able to listen and handle some of these cases. But I believe that they are doing that. But it's just that maybe we need a lot more sensitization for the men to know that there's nothing wrong with them reporting an abuse within their home, that they are being abused or their boy child is being abused. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and confidence.
The 2024 fourth quarter statistics show that out of 12,378 cases, females accounted for 9,563, representing 77.3%, while the cases involving males were 2,815, representing 22.7%. Barbara Mlenga for Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Medicines Research and Access Platform, MEDRAP, has called on the government to implement sustainable measures to support the health sector following the suspension of U.S. foreign aid. On January 20, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order suspending all foreign aid for 90 days, including the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, a critical program providing antiretroviral medication to several countries, including Zambia. In an interview, MEDRAP Executive Director Dr. Lyoka emphasized that reliance on external funding for essential health services is unsustainable, particularly in light of unexpected policy shifts. He warned that such disruptions could have severe consequences for individuals dependent on donor-funded medical programs like PEPFAR. Dr. Lyoka further acknowledged that while a waiver has been granted to exempt life-saving HIV treatment under PEPFAR, additional efforts are needed to ensure the long-term stability of the health sector, even in the absence of donor support.
To address the issue of the suspension, initial suspension of funding from the U.S. government through its agencies, to Africa, in particular the government of the Republic of Zambia, especially to the health sector. We know that quite a large component of the budget in the health sector relies to a large extent on external funding from donors. And for a long time, we know that the U.S. government has been assisting the government of Zambia to especially finance the procurement and support the supply chain for antiretroviral therapy, TB medication, and other components of the essential medicines supply chain. And this we are grateful because this has been going on for a long time. However, now we know that there was the suspension for funding, these programs by the U.S. government. Although there's been a rethink on the part of the U.S. government to only support, those medicines such as antiretroviral therapy, medication, TB, and other, ailments. This is a demonstration to the Zambian government and the people of Zambia that reliance on donor funding for critical components of our budget, such as, of course, the health budget, cannot be relied upon for a long time. It is no longer sustainable. And I think that we must begin to think beyond just the Trump administration.
The Zambian Cancer Society has called on women to prioritize cervical cancer screening and ensure that children between the ages of 9 and 15 receive the human papillomavirus (HPV) vaccine as a preventive measure against cancer-related mortality. Zambian Cancer Society Communications and Administrative Officer Ida Piri attributed the high mortality rate in childhood cancer to multiple factors including late diagnosis, inadequate treatment, limited access to healthcare services, and a lack of awareness among parents. Ms. Piri noted that many children are diagnosed at advanced stages of cancer, making treatment more complex and lowering survival rates. She stressed that cancer is one of the most preventable and treatable diseases when detected early and managed effectively. Ms. Piri has further called on the government and other stakeholders to increase funding for childhood cancer services and support initiatives promoting awareness and access to quality health care for affected children.
The basic signs and symptoms of cancers which are common in children, cancers like retinoblastoma and all that. So some, even after seeing the symptoms, they'll just continue giving their children painkillers and all that, and the belief that cancer is only found in adults. So some would be diagnosed with the disease and they stop their children from receiving treatment. Some because there's only one cancer hospital in the country and maybe they are far and they don't have transport money to be going back and forth, and they'll end treatment on the way. So those are some of the causes of death in young children with cancer, and some will just decide not to adhere to treatment. And so the last question is your call of action to women, especially young women who are sexually active. My advice is if you're a woman and you're sexually active, make sure you have your cervical cancer screening done, because if cancer is detected in an early stage, it's highly curable, it's less painful, it's less expensive, so you save yourself. And also, if you are a mother or a guardian, a parent, and you've got children between the ages of 9 to 15, make sure they get their HPV vaccine. This is a vaccine that prevents young people from getting cancer, cervical cancer, later in the future when they become sexually active.
Energy expert Leonard Sepe has called on ZESCO to further adjust upward electricity tariffs for commercial consumers such as the mining and manufacturing industries to compensate for revenue losses resulting from a decline in residential customers. This follows the utility company's failure to meet its monthly revenue target of $15 million despite implementing a tariff hike last year. In an interview, Mr. Sepe highlighted that ZESCO has lost a significant number of residential customers to alternative energy sources, contributing to its revenue decline. Mr. Sepe further expressed concern over the rising cost of production due to the extension of ZESCO's emergency electricity tariffs, warning that the measure will further disrupt business activities nationwide. The Energy Regulation Board, ERB, recently extended ZESCO's emergency electricity tariffs for an additional 3 months from February 1st to April 30th, 2025. Details in the following report.
Zambia's energy sector has in the last 1 year been a matter of concern, especially after disruptions in the country's power supply necessitated by the drought. Following this development, there has been a lot of change in business operations across the country, including operations of the power utility company, ZESCO. Last year, in response to the drought, ZESCO implemented a load management schedule in view of the declining water levels at the Kariba Dam. The power utility company also applied for emergency tariff increase so it could generate more revenue and meet power imports needed to supply the 7 hours of power as promised. However, ZESCO has failed to meet its target of $15 million in monthly revenue despite the hike in electricity tariffs, and as such has failed to live up to its promise of 7 hours of power supply. Given this development, energy expert Leonard Sepe has urged ZESCO to further revise upwards tariffs for commercial consumers such as mining and manufacturing industries, noting the significant decline in residential consumers.
The alternative approach to making sure that ZESCO collects more as projected is by way of reviewing the tariff plan for the larger manufacturing, the commercials, like the minings that we have, and all those that are involved in the production of or in the manufacturing, because that is where now ZESCO can capitalize as opposed on the consumers. From the consumers, what they are collecting is less according to their projection. So what ZESCO must do is to now look at the plan that they have with the mining companies that this country have, as well as those who are in the manufacturing, who consume a lot of power, because that is where the power, more revenue can be generated.
Mr. Sepe further noted with concern the further rise in the cost of production that the extension of the emergency electricity tariff will have on businesses across the country.
The extension of emergency tariff by the energy by ZESCO that was approved by Energy Regulation Board up to 30th April, it has got a lot of effect on the consumers, in the sense that those consumers who depend on this tariff for the production of various goods and services, it means that the cost of doing business will continue going up, and that will also has a negative effect on the final consumers who are buying these goods and services. So we were hoping that the Energy Regulation Board could look into this matter when ZESCO placed the application for the continuation or for the extension of the emergency tariff.
Chanda Mwango for Camnet News in Osaka.
The Federation of Free Trade Unions of Zambia, FFTUZ, has called for the expedited implementation of plans to extend compensation coverage to workers in the informal sector. Speaking in an interview, FTTUZ Secretary General Nelson Mwale emphasized that all workers, regardless of their employment status, should have access to compensation benefits. He noted that the informal sector employs the majority of Zambia's workforce, making it essential to provide financial protection to workers for unseen calamities. Mr. Mwale also commended the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for its ongoing efforts to simplify compensation processes, ensuring that injured workers and employers can easily access services. His remarks follow a statement made by Labour and Social Security Minister Brenda Tambatamba during a farewell dinner for the outgoing Workers' Compensation Fund Control Board, where she reiterated the government's commitment to extending compensation coverage to informal sector workers.
Free Trade Unions of Zambia, we welcome the pronouncement by the Minister of Labour through the Workers' Compensation Control Board that workers' compensation activities must be extended to the informal sector. You realize that there are a lot of accidents, there are a lot of misfortunes that take place in the informal sector, but they go unmentioned. They go without being taken care of. If it happens that somebody is unable to pay for themselves in hospitals and so on, others will end up dying. But if what is enjoyed in the mines, what is enjoyed in these other sectors was extended, I think it would go a very, very long way. Because at the end of the day, workers' compensation must be for every citizen who is actually, contributing to the welfare of the economy of this country. So we commend our Minister of Labour, and we hope the process will be expedited, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of accidents that we see taking place, even in markets, okay? Even in these bus companies, you find a number of them are found in accidents and are not affiliated to workers' compensation.
President Hakainde Hichilema has urged the Japanese communities to explore investment opportunities across various sectors in Zambia. Speaking at the Zambia-Japan Business Forum in Tokyo this morning, President Hichilema emphasized that Zambia remains largely underexplored, offering not only opportunities in the mining sector, but also in agriculture, energy, and other key industries. He highlighted the vast investment potential in these sectors, stressing that his government has established a stable and conducive business environment to attract foreign investors. President Hichilema also reaffirmed his administration's commitment to strengthening the rule of law and enhancing investor confidence. The head of state further assured Japanese investors of his government's full support, emphasizing that their participation in Zambia's economy would contribute to economic growth and improve the livelihoods of citizens.
Great opportunities. Just to mention a few, in the mining sector. I was explaining to the minister in our side room that Zambia is targeting 3 million tons of copper per annum by 2031. It's a tall order. We're working very hard to achieve that. And Japanese businesses, from my early days, young days in the profession, where I started working with first after I left school, we had them doing business in the mining sector. I mentioned the names of those companies in the side meeting. So we want them to continue now, to have a rebound of what it's been for many years. I think it's just like coming back home. So we want to invite those companies to come back to Zambia, but also to pull along, to drag along other businesses because of the opportunities extra to the mining sector. And I did say that opportunities are not just in the brown fields, but also in the green fields. With your geophysical, technology-driven exploration, Zambia is underexplored. So we're doing some work now, but we also are working on a partnership with your country, I think government to government, plus business, to do more exploration in that area. So, but I also said Zambia is not just copper. Zambia is host to critical minerals: copper, cobalt, nickel, manganese, lithium group, and many others. So knowing what your industry is here, what your capabilities are here, the technological capabilities, I think you should look to Zambia to source, to value add to a certain level, to connect to your own industry requirements here. Win-win situation.
The Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, EFZ, has called for the immediate release of Kitwe-based clergyman Pastor Duncan SIMUCHIMBA, who was recently convicted of unlawful assembly and sentenced to 9 months of hard labor. EFZ Executive Director Andrew Mwenda has urged the government to embrace open dialogue rather than suppress dissenting voices, stressing the importance of working together for the well-being of all Zambians. Mr. Mwenda argued that the ongoing fight against cholera on the Copper Belt province does not necessitate the demolition of market stores, particularly during challenging economic times. He described Pastor SIMUCHIMBA's conviction as unjust, noting that the pastor has consistently advocated for the rights of the poor, including marketeers at Sokone Market.
Our position as Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, we have received with great sadness the news of this conviction of this great servant of God, who from time to time defends the poor and speaks on justice for the poor, particularly also the marketeers of Chisokone. The fight against the cholera on the Copper Belt province can still record great success without demolition of market stores, especially in these harsh economic times. Government should not be quick to shut voices that seem to have a difference of opinion, but should rather listen and find ways to work together for the betterment of all Zambians. Secondly, although Pastor SIMUCHIMBA and his church may not necessarily be members of the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia by registration, but like many others, is a member of his is a member by his strong evangelical and Pentecostal belief and his fight for justice. The Bible implores us to never twist justice or show partiality in Deuteronomy 16 verse 19, and to let true justice prevail, Deuteronomy 19 verse 20. I must stress, however, that in advocating for his release, we are not justifying lawlessness, but simply highlighting that the good he has done and associated with outweighs any bad that our brother has done against the law. EFZ stands with Pastor Duncan SIMUCHIMBA, and we hereby join in calls for the pastor's immediate and unconditional release.
We now go to court news, where the Lusaka Magistrate Court has issued another bench warrant against Patriotic Front faction Information and Publicity Emmanuel MWAMBA after he failed to appear in court for his assault case. Lusaka Magistrate Trevor Kasanda ruled that the explanation provided by MWAMBA's surety, Gordon Mwila, was unsatisfactory as it lacked medical proof. Mr. Mwila informed the court that MWAMBA had dislocated his shoulder and could not travel back from the United States. However, the court found that no medical report or evidence had been presented to justify his absence. As a result, a bench warrant was issued, returnable on February 25, 2025. Mr. MWAMBA is facing a charge of allegedly assaulting a police officer. This latest ruling comes a day after another Lusaka court, presided over by Magistrate Ami Masoja Chilangwa, issued a separate bench warrant for his failure to appear in a different case yesterday. Still in court news, the Attorney General and the Speaker of the National Assembly have opposed the petition filed by Patriotic Front PF Faction Secretary General Morgan Ngona, seeking a court order to declare the Matero parliamentary seat vacant following the expulsion of Member of Parliament Mao Sampa. In a response filed in the Constitutional Court through National Assembly Deputy Clerk for Procedure Stephen Kawimbe, Attorney General Mulilo Kabesha argued that the Constitutional Court lacks jurisdiction to hear the matter. He maintains that the court is not the appropriate forum to determine the case. Mr. Ngona petitioned the court on January 16, 2025, arguing that the Speaker's inaction on Sampa's expulsion violated Article 72(1)(e) of the Constitution, which states that an MP must vacate their seat if they cease to be a member of the party under which they were elected. However, in their combined response, the Attorney General and Speaker Nelly Muti insist that the Speaker acted within the law, specifically under Article 72(5), which outlines procedures for handling disputes related to parliamentary seats. They argue that the Speaker's decision is in line with legal provisions and Ngona is not entitled to a relief sought. Kabesha further points out that the matter is already before the High Court, where Sampa filed a defense and counterclaim challenging his expulsion from the opposition PF. Moving on in court news, a defense witness has testified before the Lusaka Magistrate Court that independent Lumezi Member of Parliament Munia Zulu's press briefing alleged to be defamatory was intended to alert the Anti-Corruption Commission ACC about possible corruption. Hector Sondo, President of United for Better Zambia UBZ, told Chief Resident Magistrate Davis Chiwili that he watched the video of Zulu's March 21, 2023 press briefing in which the lawmaker and fellow MP Mlenga Fube made allegations against Infrastructure Minister Charles Milupi and Finance Minister Stumbekom Sokotwane. He stated that Zulu was appealing to the ACC in his capacity as a parliamentarian and Secretary General of the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, APNAC. He further argued that the briefing was not malicious but a call for transparency. Another witness, businessman Suzio Mbale, also testified that he followed the video on social media, saying Zulu's remarks aligned with the government's policy of zero tolerance for corruption. Mr. Zulu is accused of defaming ministers Milupi and Sokotwane, as well as Road Development Agency RDA board chairperson Mauchand Kuntawala. He allegedly claimed at a press conference that the two ministers received $250,000 each via a bank transfer from an undisclosed company, and that Mauchand Kuntawala sent $150,000 Tumilupi, 2 days before his appointment